بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today inshallah we'll begin a new book which is entitled حلية طالب العلم, the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge, which is written by Shaykh Bakr Abu Zaid rahimahullah. حلية طالب العلم, the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge. This is the translation given to the printed English translation. However, the word حلية, it directly translates to adornment. For the حلية is something which you adorn yourself, you beautify yourself with. So the book is the adornment, or some translations you find of the book, the ornament of the seeker of knowledge, that which they have beautified themselves with, which is a truer meaning to the actual title. But because the title and the book is about the etiquette of seeking knowledge, then the translator, he chose to refer to it as the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge. So here, this book is a book designed or written by this noble Shaykh rahimahullah in advice to the seeker of knowledge, to Talib al-Ilm, how he should go about seeking knowledge, what are the method or the methodology of seeking knowledge, what are the things you should be doing, what are the things you should be avoiding. He also gives amazing advice about the way that the student of knowledge can progress in the learning and some of the things that lead to the failure or the lack of success of the student of knowledge. And alongside this work, we will be reading the sharh, the explanation of this work by Shaykh Al-Allama Muhammad bin Salih Al-Uthaymin rahimahullah, who explained the work, showing to us that the book has value. For we mentioned last week, one of the signs that a book has worthiness or deservedness of study is that the ulama, they praise it and they have inayah, concern for it. So not only Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah explain it, but in his muqaddim he explains that the book is a book of value. It's been praised. So inshallah we'll begin reading this work. And no doubt this book and the books on this subject are one of great need. All of us are in need of reminder about the etiquette of seeking knowledge and how to go about it to retain the knowledge. And no one is better to give us that advice than the ulama, the scholars who have already been given by Allah's permission the knowledge. So we'll begin first with the introduction of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, Muqaddimatu Sharih, where he begins by saying all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His assistance, and we seek His forgiveness, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own selves and the evil of our own actions. Whoever Allah guides, none can misguide, and whoever Allah misguides, none can guide. And I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except for Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is His servant and messenger. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. As for what proceeds or follows, the Shaykh says that we have decided to explain the book Hilyatu Talib al-Ilm, the adornment of the seeker of knowledge, the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge, after consulting and discussing this issue with our fellow students of knowledge here at the Jami'. So here Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, he's talking about the book, because he used to teach, the Shaykh used to teach, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, in his local masjid, or the masjid in his locality, the Jami' fi Unayza. And you find in many of the books the Shaykh explains, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, they're audio explanations. And then the audio was taken and transcribed into book form. So you find many of his books that are coming out even till today are the transcriptions of the audio into book form. So he used to explain this book in the masjid, the Jami' masjid means the large masjid, the major masjid in Unayza from the year 1415 until 1416. This is when the Shaykh was explaining the book. So he says that I asked or consulted our fellow students about which book to choose, to which they suggested this book, and the Shaykh then accepted. And likewise ourselves, before deciding to read this, we consulted our Ustad, our teacher, Abu Fajr, about what book we should be teaching, and he suggested this book because we're all in need of the reminder. And so then the Shaykh says that the student knowledge, he is in need of adorning himself with these virtuous characteristics, which if he is missing from them, means if they're not with him, then he lacks the benefit. So then he says it's obligatory upon a person, every time he has something of knowledge or he's about to learn about something, that he knows its virtues, whether it be from the virtuous actions or the actions of worship, that he has with him the knowledge of it. Otherwise, he'll be from those who are ignorant. And then he benefits us saying that if someone, means here the one who has knowledge, if he doesn't act upon that which he has of the knowledge, then he'll become an ignorant one. In fact, the ignorant one is more better than him, because leaving off something purposely is different than the one who is ignorant, who leaves it up out of ignorance. So here is important: if you learn knowledge and you don't act upon its characteristics and its contents, then he's worse than the one who is jahil. The one who is ignorant means jahil basit. He has a simple ignorance. He doesn't know any better, because the one who knows and doesn't do, he's actually leaving it off without knowledge, but also with knowledge of what he's leaving off. He's doing it deliberately. And then he says that the jahil, perhaps he may benefit if he's taught something, as opposed to the one who knows and he doesn't benefit by it. And so there we want to remind ourselves that not everything that you learn will always benefit you, unless you have sincerity and Allah gives you tawfiq. Because every type of knowledge you learn, you're supposed to benefit from it. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his ad'iyah, his du'as he used to make, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from knowledge that doesn't benefit. It means that knowledge which doesn't increase you in action and in righteousness and drawing near to Allah. For what is the benefit of learning and then not acting upon it? It's ilm la yanfa', no benefit. And then the Shaykh says, for those reasons, I encourage myself and you, means the students in the audience who are listening, to adorn themselves with the akhlaq al-fadila, the virtuous attributes and characteristics, and being patient and deliberate and determined in this affair. And also to have pardoning and ihsan, means completion and perfection in matters, to the best of your ability. For this is in reality the greatest of the wasaya, the greatest advice that can be given, because the head of them, of all these advices, is taqwa. As Allah He says and advised us, وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. That verily we have advised those before you, as we have advised you, that you fear Allah. Surah An-Nisa, ayah 131. As for the author of this book Al-Hilya, there is no other than our brother, the Shaykh, Bakr Abu Zaid, rahimahullah, who's from the senior ulama, senior scholars, ma'urufin, who is well known bil-hazm wal-dabt wal-nazah. He's a scholar who is known for his precision and accuracy in knowledge. And he is taking many positions in his lifetime, means stations in knowledge and positions in public positions. Means, for example, that he was from the Lajnah Da'ima. Anyone who reads the primary Lajnah Da'ima, the primary committee of Saudi Arabia, the Fatawa, you find his name is there, Bakr Abu Zaid. And he has many other positions. Means this Shaykh is well-grounded knowledge, min ulama kibar, the senior scholars. And then he says what indicates this, means that he has these positions, is proof that this person has qualifications. And the Shaykh was also one who had a doctorate, means he was a PhD graduate from Islamic studies. And he said the Shaykh also used to sit in many of the committees for fatwa, the head of them being the committee which Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah used to sit in, means the permanent committee in Riyadh. Also the Hay'a Kibar Ulama, the council of the senior scholars, which he was part of. فَنَسَأَلَ اللَّهُ لَنَا وَلَهُ تَوْفِيقٍ. We ask Allah for him and us tawfiq. And we also want to mention that the Shaykh Bakr Abu Zaid, many of us might not be familiar with his work because only few of them have been translated. But the Shaykh rahimahullah was well-grounded and well-authored, means prolific in writing. Somewhere upwards of 60 different works he has written with of utmost detail on subjects perhaps very few have ever written about. And the Shaykh was one who was a master in his books, the knowledge of the books, master in Arabic language, the Shaykh Uthaymeen is going to mention now, and one who was full of knowledge. And amongst his biography, you find he studied with many of the ulama, the head of them being Shaykh Ibn Baz and Shaykh Muhammad Amin al-Shinqiti, rahimahullah, which he sticked with. Means he had mulazama with this Shaykh for such a long time and took many books from him, and upwards of 20 different ijazat from different mashayikh he had. So the Shaykh, his biography and his knowledge is well known, attested to by the kibar ulama. He's praised by many of them. Various scholars have praised him and given recommendation, this Shaykh. Some of his work has been into English, translated, as he said, but many of them have not. And the Shaykh then shares Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, that this scholar was one who was well grounded in the Arabic language. And the indication of that is that sometimes in his book, he would use language in which in reality you need to return back to dictionary to understand. For he was one who spoke without takalluf. He didn't have this unnecessary burden. Rather, his speech was very smooth and mustaqim, upright. And this all proves to his natural strength in Arabic language, which many of the ulama of our time don't have. And this is witnessed by anyone who reads the work of Shaykh Bakr ibn Zaid, rahimahullah. You find difficulty in understanding him due to the language that he uses, which is of eloquence and high language, which is not the uslub min the ulama when they write, either because of the strength that he had in Arabic, or also to make it easy for people to understand. Because you'll find that the Shaykh will comment later, Shaykh Uthaymeen, about some of the ways that he writes, the expressions he uses, which are from the from eloquence in Arabic language. And the Shaykh gives an example. He says that sometimes when you read his work, you find that he resembles the work was considered Maqamat al-Hariri, which is a book well known in Arabic language with advices and strength in language and fawaid in Arabic language. It resembles this. It means that this scholar was well known and who was strong in Arabic language. And then he says, then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq and sawab in explaining this book and to getting into it. So inshallah we'll begin then reading the introduction of the Shaykh, which everyone, he can get the translation. It's available for those who want the English translation of this book in English. You can find the PDF copy, or you can buy it. It's very inexpensive, and it's a benefit to buy it and to bring it to the lessons, so it makes it easier as you read from it. And we read the sharh of Shaykh Uthaymeen as well. So Shaykh, he begins, Shaykh Bakr ibn Zayd, in his muqaddimah. He says, rahimahullah, all praise is due to Allah alone. And to proceed, I wrote this blessed book in the year 1408 Hijri, at a time when the Muslims are witnessing an awakening to knowledge, to which faces are lit up or light up in delight. It is still progressing, means strongly, progressing to higher levels, and blossoming in the hearts of the youth of this ummah. Its glory into blood is being renewed, or renews in this life, as we see their writings follow one another in succession. And as we see them going to and fro from within the folds of knowledge, they are overloaded by carrying it, and they drink from it time and time again. They possess ambitions, academic qualities, and amazing patience upon studying and diving deeply into the issues, all of which is enough to bring tidings of victory to the Muslims. So praise be to Allah, the one who gives life and death to the hearts. So here in the beginning of this book, the Shaykh is giving the reason behind the authoring of the book, which is that there's an awakening, academic awakening. In the early 1400s, now we're in 1440, people have been turning towards Talib al-Ilm and seeking it academically underneath the scholars in different institutions of knowledge. And no doubt we see that till today, people are acquiring more about knowledge and beginning to study it from scratch. But then the Shaykh mentions here, however, it is essential to water this blessed seed and to supervise it throughout its journey in order to extend a safeguard to it that protects it from stumbling in the midst of seeking and acting upon the knowledge, and from intellectual, ideological, and behavioral, divisional, and partitional commotion. I have put at their disposal a letter on ta'alum, feigning knowledge, that exposes those hiding within their ranks out of fear that will lead them to the destruction and confusion. Here Shaykh Uthaymeen, he mentions, after the beginning paragraphs, that the Shaykh Bakr ibn Zayd, rahimahullah, he's mentioning here that there is this ambition from the young people, the youth, in terms of seeking knowledge. And this ambition that they have, وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدِ, may Allah all praise be to Allah, is one that in reality it requires some type of safeguarding and brakes. Like you have brakes in the vehicle to prevent it from getting out of control. And he says that in reality, if this nahda, this type of awakening and revival, isn't protected and isn't supervised, then it can lead someone to that which is not praiseworthy. And the Shaykh gives the example. Shaykh Uthaymin says, أَرَأَيْتُمُ الْخَوَارِجِ Don't you see the Khawarij, the rebellious sect? Those who are, in reality, who rebel against the rulers, who advocate the ideology of the terrorists. He says, عِنْدَهُمْ They have with them Iman and the love that the Muslims be upon the truth. And you might find this quality in them more than anyone else. However, they increased, means they've extended the boundaries until they began to declare the Muslims to be disbelievers, and the Muslim rulers and the leaders. And they exited then this path altogether. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يمرقون من الإسلام كما يمرق السهم من الرمية. That they will exit the fold of Islam the same way the quiver exits, or the arrow exits its target. As hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So here we benefit that if somebody has enthusiasm, ambition for something, but it's not safeguarded, protected with guidelines, it won't benefit him. So you find in the Khawarij, with this love to establish the Muslims upon truth, they went to the extremes of declaring those who were deficient in their eyes to be disbelievers outside Islam. And so here the Shaykh is showing us that in reality then you must keep your heart firm and principle such that you don't fall far away from the intended goal. Because we are treading a path which is difficult. And it's must that you also obtain the intent, the maqsood, which is iqamah to dinillah, which is to establish Allah's religion, and it should not be overcome by the things that dominate the soul, means desires. And he says if someone's intent is to aid the deen of Allah, then verily a person, he needs to take and tread أقرب الطرق إلى حصول هذه المقصود. He should take the shortest path to reach your intended target. And this is important. When you're seeking knowledge, you're helping to support the deen of Allah. إِن تَنْصُرُ اللَّهَ يَنْصُرُكُمْ, Allah says. If you assist and you aid Allah, Allah will aid you. And so what is the benefit from this? That when you do طالب العلم شرعي, you seek Islamic knowledge, you act upon it, you're actually helping the deen of Allah. But that must be with the correct intention and taking the best path. For many people, they wish to help the ummah, or they wish to take the path of aiding the ummah, and they take the wrong path. تُرِيدُ النَّجَاةِ وَلَمْ تَسْلُكْ مَسَالِكَهَا. You want success, but you don't tread its path. إِنَّ السَّفِينَةَ لَا تَجْرِي عَلَى الْيَبَسِ. The sakina, the ship doesn't sail on dry land. How many times we find people, they say, you want to help the deen of Allah, and they fall into extremism, or ignorance, or not even following the path, which is predicated upon knowledge. You need to have knowledge before you tread any path. And طالب العلم likewise, to help Allah's deen to be dominant, you must come to the correct door. And it says here then, the Shaykh, that this is the reality of the need for such a book. Here Shaykh Bakr Zaid rahimahullah mentions that before he wrote this book, حلية طالب العلم, amongst his many books he wrote is a kitab at-ta'alum. And it's a book the brothers should pay attention to. It's a book about those who pretend to have knowledge. Muta'alim is one who is a pretender of knowledge. He doesn't have knowledge, he pretends to have one. And he said that he wrote this book before he wrote this, means exposing those who are hidden within their ranks out of fear that they will lead to destruction. Means there's people out there who claim to have knowledge, but in reality they don't have knowledge. Means knowledge is قال الله وقال رسول على فهم صحابة salaf. It's not just you narrating things or you're writing things and you're getting it wrong. Means you're coming up with your own interpretation. So he wrote the Kitab al-Ta'alum, highly recommended book, exposing the pretenders of knowledge. And that book, the scholars, they praise, some of them even did sharh on it, and explaining it. So Shaykh Ibn Abdul says he wrote this book, Kitab al-Ta'alum, before he wrote this book. Means first he exposed those who pretenders of knowledge, and now he writes those who want to tread the correct path of knowledge. So let me know that's one of the Shaykh's books which are highly praised and well deserving to be read. And then the Shaykh says, in turn, pulling them away from the straight path without realizing. And today your brother, means the Shaykh himself, is taking you by the hand and supporting you and putting at your disposal of your fingertips a letter, means a treatise that carries the distinguishing characteristics for your beautification. So here I am, putting my sharpened pencil tip to the paper and reciting that which I am writing for you, and that which is enough for Allah to bring comfort to your eyes. Means here I am writing for you this book. I wrote the book Ta'alam, now I'm writing this book. And to show again the Shaykh's Arabic, how good it is, and how much he uses eloquence. Shaykh Uthaymin, he explains, he's supporting. When he goes in the beginning of this passage, he begins by saying that, and today your brother, means he's referring to himself, and then he switches from that tense towards the absent tense means he's talking then out of third person, from first person to third person, by saying then that he has put you in your hands. The Shaykh said this is a type of eloquence, moving from one ghaiba ila hudur, moving from the first person, means directly speaking to you, addressing you, to the third person. They're talking as if he's absent. Which he says, the Shaykh, many of the ulama, they don't normally write like this. Because when the ulama they write, they try to make sure it's understood by the people. But the Shaykh is naturally strong in Arabic, he writes in this manner. And the Shaykh brings some examples, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, of this type of balagha in the Quran. As Allah says, وَلَقَدْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ وَبَعَثْنَا مِنْهُمْ 12 نَقِيبًا. That's an example. Allah begins the ayah, وَلَقَدْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ. Allah, He took from you the mithaq, the covenant. Allah has taken the covenant from Bani Israel. وَبَعَثْنَا, and then we. So he moved from him talking about himself in third person to himself directly. So the benefit obviously is the Shaykh is trying to say, he wrote this book for the students of knowledge. Why? Because he wants to protect this new kind of ambition and desire for knowledge from getting out of hand. People are learning from the wrong sources, for example. People learning in an undisciplined manner. Because if you learn this way, you won't truly learn. And this is a great advice and great book to be reading, especially when nowadays people are learning from the YouTube. People are learning from the internet without any guidelines. So here the Shaykh is going to teach us how to learn, and that manner of learning is not the way that it's done. You don't just go on the internet and collect everything. Because even then, if someone were to just seek knowledge unprincipled, without a filter, what will be his conclusion or his result? He won't become a Talib al-Ilm, he'll become Hatibul Layl. He'll become the fire collector, the one who collects firewood at night. Today some people, they think they're seeking knowledge, but really what they're doing is they're collecting firewood at night. Which is meaning that you go on the internet, you collect everything. Poison, you collect cure, you collect everything and you say there, I've learned this. But you don't know which one is harmful, which one is correct, which is guidance, which is misguidance. So in reality, someone if he's learning, he needs to know how. And then the Shaykh says the motives of the Sharia are affirmative upon this issue. That the one adorn himself with a beautiful etiquette, noble manners, good behavior, and pious conduct are distinguishing characteristics of the people of Islam and that of knowledge. The most precious pearl in the crown of the purified Sharia cannot be attained except by those who adorn themselves with its etiquette and those who leave evil qualities associated to it. Means if you want to study Islam and Islamic knowledge, which is the purest of things, you need to be furthest away from the qualities which are not pure. Because if you're trying to seek that which is pure, you too need to be purified and must be adorned. And you find this from many of the Salaf, they will mention statements like this. For this reason, he says, the scholars devoted their attention to writing on etiquette, outlined its importance and wrote books solely on the topic, either pertaining to general conduct with all types of knowledge, or to specific types of knowledge, such as the etiquettes of the carriers of the noble Quran, the etiquette of the muhaddith, the etiquette of the mufti, the etiquette of the qadi, the etiquette of the muhtasib, the one who enjoins good and forbids evil, and so on. So here we benefit that in reality, the ulama, due to the importance of having etiquette, they wrote on this subject. And the Shaykh at the end of the Muqaddim, he gives a long list of books like this which you can go back to. So some of them wrote about the etiquettes of the carriers of the Quran. So for example, Adab Hamalat al-Quran, or Akhlaq Hamalat al-Quran, the etiquette of the carrier of the Quran. So for example, Imam Ajurri or Imam Nawawi, more famous Tibyan. Or they wrote about adab related to the qadi, the judge. How should the judge be? How should the mufti be? Khatib Baghdadi has adab, a book, adab, relation to the mufti wal mustafti. The mufti and the one who's asking the question to the mufti. How they should behave. With the tasheeh of Shaykh al-Albani, rahimahullah. Or some they wrote about the etiquette of the muhtasib, the one who's enjoining good and forbidding evil. How should he do it? For example, you find in Ahkam Sultaniyya chapters on it. Or like for example the work of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. So he says the issue is his general conduct of those who take the path of learning and the knowledge of the Sharia. And then he says, in the past the scholars used to dictate to the seekers in the gatherings of knowledge, the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge. And I reached the time of the last highlights of that in some of the gatherings of knowledge in the noble prophetic masjid, means Masjid Rasul, Masjid Nabawi, as some of the teachers therein used to teach there the book by Zarnuji, rahimahullah, who passed away 593 Hijri, which he named Teaching the Learner the Way of Learning. Ta'aleem al-Muta'allim Tariqa Ta'allum. So here we benefit that in the past, the ulama used to teach adab talib ilm and talib ilm to the students in the masjid, in the halaqat. Alhamdulillah, some time ago, the brothers and I, myself, we went over the book of Zarnoji, rahimahullah, the summarized version, which is summarized by Shaykh Muhammad Ibrahim al-Misri. And we went over that book and the etiquettes that are mentioned. So alhamdulillah, those who read or benefit from that, we see that the book itself was the earliest books written, amongst the earliest books. And the Shaykh said, I hope that the scholars will extend this firm rope that leads to the most noble of ways by including the teaching of this topic at the beginning of the gatherings in the masajid and as a topic in academic curriculums. Similarly, I hope that this will be a good opening in reviving this topic, which is a means of disciplining the seeker and taking him on the path of adherence and etiquette in seeking and carrying knowledge, and his etiquette with himself, his teacher, his lessons, his books, his colleagues, and the fruits of knowledge, and so on. So here Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen commented, mentioning that some of the books are designed to help the one who's seeking Islamic knowledge, which includes the tariq, the path of ta'aleem wal adab. Some of them are for the mu'allim, and some of them for the muta'allim. Some for the teacher himself, and some for the student. Then Shaykh says, Shaykh Bakr Zaid, finishing the muqaddimah, so too I present this book, and it contains a number of manners that if a person were to neglect them, who would have acquired of evil characteristics. Means there's some nawaqid of this hilya. At the end of the book, he lists them. What are the nullifiers of the hilya? What are the things, if you do them, you've removed the adornment of a seeker of knowledge. As Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned the benefit that it's important to mention that not every time someone leaves out something which is masnoona, something which is recommended, that they fall into something makruh. Not always if you leave off the mustahab, you fall into makruh. But sometimes if you, for example, leave out something which is mustahab, it means you just left it off. Like for example, he gives the salah issue, as Ahmadi was teaching about salah. He says, for example, some things we do in salah which is mustahab. If someone left him off, it doesn't mean he did makruh. It just means he left the mustahab. So, but in this case, Shaykh Bakr Zaid mentioning things that if you leave them off, it's going to nullify. The idea is nullify what you're adorning yourself with. So it's a benefit to distinguish the two. And then the Shaykh mentions, similarly, the things that oppose these manners are also the levels that vary from being things that are makruh to muharram. Amongst these manners are the things which apply to everybody in general, and there are things that specify or specifically apply to the seeker of knowledge. The student of knowledge is higher than the ammi, the layman. He has a higher etiquette, a higher expectation. So we'll see some of the etiquette he mentions apply to the seeker of knowledge, talib ilm, more than the ammi, because the seeker of knowledge is supposed to be, in his angle, is supposed to be higher than the ammi in terms of his etiquette. He has higher expectations. And there are some which are known by necessity from the sharia, and there are some that are known through common sense. But there is a general indication to them in the sharia, such as having good conduct and noble manners. And I also do not intend to encompass all the subject, but its layout is a manner that gives slight hints and points to the priorities. So if a good soul comes across this book, then he would take this a small amount. Then he would take this small amount and increase it. And that which is general and specified. And whoever takes that which is therein will benefit from it, and in turn benefit others from it. It is within itself taken from the etiquette of those whom Allah has blessed their knowledge and made them into imams. And those who are taken as examples of guidance, may Allah gather us with them in His paradise. Ameen. Meaning Shaykh Bakr Ibn Zaid is taking this work from the ulama who passed. He summarized from different books. And in his footnote here, which we'll finish with, he mentions a long list of those books. Example, he says, books which ulama have written solely on the subject of seeking knowledge and the adab of talib ilm. For example, Kitab Al-Jami', which is Qaadir Ibn Abdul's book, Al-Qaadir Ibn Abdul Jami' Al-Khalq Al-Rawi wa Adab Al-Sami'. Also his book Al-Fiqh wal-Mutafaqqih. Also the book we mentioned, Ta'aleem Al-Muta'allim Tariq Ta'allum Az-Zarnuji. Adab Al-Talab, Imam Al-Shawkani. It's a book which some of the ulama explain, like our Shaykh Yahya Hafidhullah. Other books he mentions Adab Al-Muta'allimin, the adab of those who are learners, by As-Suhnun. Also Risala Al-Mufassira Bil-Ahkam Al-Muta'allimin Al-Qabisi, and others, Tadhkir Al-Sami' Wal-Mutakallim, Ibn Jama'ah, and so many others. So this book the Shaykh's writing is just a small summary of those bigger books or earlier works. But like he said, he's reviving the subject at a time when people are learning without having that. And today we might say that this book, Hilya, Talib Ilm, Hilya, Talib Ilm, is the primer in this subject for people of nowadays. In our days now, this is the new primer. As Shaykh Uthaymeen explained it, because in reality it's a summary of all those books. And some of the ulama continue to author on it, like Shaykh Salih Al-Usaymi, Hafidhullah, in his book, Ta'zeem Al-Ilm, the veneration of knowledge, and others. So it's not the subject which is closed, but the ulama continue to author. And you'll find some of those books are very big and some small. So in summary, we end with this much as Muqaddimah. And inshallah next week we'll begin the first chapter where the Shaykh talks about Adab Talib fi nafsihi, the seeker of knowledge and his etiquette in relation to his own self. What should he be doing himself? Inshallah, if anyone has any questions or anything they want to mention, otherwise inshallah we'll end with this much. طيب سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.